Incoming bracket!
My number 7 is The Last Duel, and it's a Ridley Scott movie. I personally am a really big fan of Ridley Scott, and that's why I'm looking forward to The Last Duel. Plus, it's coming around on Christmas time. What's going on, everyone? So welcome to my latest video. This is, of course, my review for The Last Duel, which is a 2021 film directed by Ridley Scott, the same director that did Blade Runner, Alien, Gladiator, Kingdom of Heaven, and a slew of many others. He's actually a director that's done 20 plus films, and I've actually ranked his filmography. You guys can check that out down below in my director playlist on my channel. Does not include The Last Duel because I did film this a little over a year ago in preparation for The Last Duel, but obviously The Last Duel got pushed back from 2020 to 2021 because of the pandemic, and that's actually going to lead me to my discussion about my relationship with this movie going into it. This was a movie I was very much so excited for, like I was mentioning, in 2020, because I was saying to myself, okay, it's directed by Ridley Scott, and it has such a great ensemble cast, and it's got a lot of people behind the camera that I'm a big fan of, too. And obviously, with the pandemic, with it occurring, unfortunately, it got pushed back because there still had to be reshoots and everything, so it got pushed back from late 2020 to late 2021, October of 2021. So, honestly, was it worth the wait? Of course. This movie is great, honestly. I loved The Last Duel. This is a stellar movie. Go into it knowing as little as possible the way I did, because for me, I do love history, for sure, but I went into it knowing nothing in regards to the events that unfolded. Like, I did not know who was going to win the duel. I didn't really know the relationship of these characters and everything, so I went in with that perspective, and right off the bat, I knew I was in for a treat, because you have the opening scene, and then it cuts to chapter 1, and I was like, oh my goodness, are they going to be doing a chapter structure and having where it's from the different perspectives of the characters? And sure enough, that's what they did, and I was like, yes! I'm a sucker for those kind of movies, not gonna lie. I love it when you have, these different perspectives of characters, and then, you fill in the blanks with other characters when you see their perspective. Because honestly, in life, that's how it is. You'll hear one story, and then you'll hear another person's story of how they saw the events and everything, and it's like, oh my goodness. And it's like, okay, I see both sides. Then you'll hear a third perspective, and you're like, oh my goodness. And then it's like it recontextualizes everything. And that's this film in a nutshell. The way the story is structured, the screenplay, I loved it, because you have 3 acts where it's one person for each act in terms of their perspective, their chapter, if you will. And then I want to argue that this is a 4-act structure film, which you don't really see, because the 4th act is the actual duel itself. And I know that people might argue that it's a 5-act structure because there's that opening scene, but the opening scene lasts like a minute or two, so I would like to call it like a prelude. But the duel itself does last quite a while, and there is an additional, 10 minutes, I would say, to that as well. So that's why I'm saying, I do believe this is a 4-act structure, and I think that it works really well. I love all the details of the screenplay. I love the dialogue, the vernacular that they utilized. I thought really worked, really got me in tune with the environment. And not only that, this is a film that has great filmmaking, which really isn't a surprise because it's Ridley Scott, but the production design really evokes that feeling of being in this time period. Like, I was immersed into this time period, and I loved it. I loved the costume design, loved the makeup, production design, as I mentioned. These are all things that I easily could see it getting Oscar nominations. Might not, because I don't think this movie's going to do well at the box office, which I'll get into at the end of this review. But I do think that it is deserving of Oscars, especially in those aspects. But not only that, I thought the visual effects were really good, really stellar. They did a great job of giving that epic scope, the grandeur that obviously Ridley Scott's going for. And leads me to talk about Ridley Scott's directing. I mean, this guy, he's been doing movies for so long, and he's 83 years old, and just like Scorsese, he's still able to give us top tier entertainment that is engaging, and I loved it for the better, honestly. The acting across the board is also incredible. I loved all the performances. There wasn't a single performance where I was like, I don't like this. And I really thought that those performances really tied in well with the character development, because you get a lot of time to obviously flesh out these characters and see their perspectives, but then you'll have it where the next act then kind of recontextualizes that. And I think that with the way that these performances are given, it's great to kind of match with that screenplay of kind of saying the recontextualization of things, and then how obviously the 3rd act is the most important act. So I really like that, and I really do think that the acting here is top notch. Again, love the score. The score is really good, evokes a lot of, obviously intense emotions. It's very fitting to the imagery, which, speaking of which, the cinematography is top tier. I really liked the usage of close-up shots during the action scenes, and then obviously the wide-angle grandeur shots. I really thought those were really good. So it's great. In terms of filmmaking, it's fantastic. I was entertained. I was engaged. It's 2 hours and 33 minutes, and there wasn't a single minute where I wasn't engaged. I was on board the entire way through. And I think it's also a movie that is, holy cow, very timely. But it's not in like that in-your-face type of way. It's very subtle, in my opinion, because it's just kind of showing it like, hey, this is how the time period was in terms of dealing with, obviously, men versus women. And you really do realize that, like, holy cow, in a lot of ways, women's rights have gone pretty far. They've gotten a lot better, but in many other ways, not much has changed, unfortunately. And I think that that's something that Scott does a great job of directing, and obviously the screenplay helps out a lot too, but I really liked that. And I'm not saying like I like it, the fact that like, oh, this is occurring. I like the fact that this is a film that isn't afraid to showcase this in a way that probably did happen during this time period, because there's just so many details of this movie that I do feel like it is probably very historically accurate. I do have to do my research about it, but I do think that it is probably really historically accurate, because there's just so many scenes that showcase little things that I'm like, huh, that's interesting. I didn't think about it like that way. And even just the questioning of, the female's perspective, I think that that's something that, especially, it's still going on today, unfortunately, but especially during this time period, it's like, it definitely was something that was relevant. And I think that this is a movie that, again, more people need to watch. I don't think this movie's going to do well at the box office. I don't. I really don't. And I'm going to get into that in a minute. But I just wanted to say, again, I was engaged. I couldn't help but really kind of be nourishing the thought-provoking content, and I loved the filmmaking. So this movie, it gets everything right. The only thing for me is that I do think that the last shot of the main female, they should have ended it right there when it faded to black. I would have been more than happy, but the movie continues on for like another minute. And I know it's just another minute, but I really do think that they should have cut right before then, because that look that she gives, in my opinion, that is one of the most powerful looks of the movies. And honestly, I think that that's the way it should have ended. But that's a minor nitpick aside. Overall, The Last Duel for me, I loved it, man. I loved it. It's one of my favorite films of the year, hands down thus far. To be fair, we do have 2 more months going into, obviously, this year. But I really loved it. I was engaged. It's thought-provoking, incredible filmmaking. Ridley Scott, he did it again, man, and holy cow, what a film. The Last Duel, for me personally, gets a 4.5 out of 5-star rating, which, if there's like a hot sauce, gets the good old Tabasco sauce. So, yeah, I really like this film. Now, as I was mentioning earlier in terms of my prelude, I don't think The Last Duel is going to do well at the box office. I really don't. It's coming out the same weekend as Halloween Kills, and this is honestly a film that is catered towards adult filmgoers. And I'm not saying that Halloween Kills isn't for adult filmgoers, but this is like a certain type of audience. It's like a niche audience. Like a lot of audience members are not going to want to see, the same story from 3 different perspectives. They're not, because they want it to be where it's like they want either brutal kills or they want, the Avengers to come together and everything. And I think that it's sad, because a movie like The Last Duel should be seen by a lot of people, but it unfortunately won't. I think that it's probably going to make 5 to 10 million at the box office, and it's going to be looked at as a flop, unfortunately. And it's like, what is going on here? Why are we having like these auteur filmmakers that are incredible, like Ridley Scott and Scorsese, but they have it where it's like their movies don't do well, but then you'll have movies like Marvel and everything, or like other big movies that have like IP. It's like, those are the movies that do well. And it's like, I get it, name recognition, but it's like, it's just kind of sad to see that like a movie like this is going to be under the radar for a lot of people. And that's why I was saying earlier that I do hope it gets Oscar nominations, but it probably won't, because with these type of studio movies that, obviously aren't IP based and are more based on like, hey, we want to pick up Oscars. If you don't get a lot of money, you're probably not going to have it where it's like you get Oscar nominations. That's why I'm saying like it's probably going to get none, unfortunately. But I'm hoping that it does pick up Oscar nominations, because a lot of times it does bring it to more people's attention. So, which is obviously all I want. I want a lot more people to watch The Last Duel. In fact, when I was on Letterboxd, there was 4 people that had seen The Last Duel. I follow almost 300 people on Letterboxd. Meanwhile, Halloween Kills, among other movies, has like nearly 100 from people I follow. So it's sad, but it's the reality of, in terms of mainstream cinema. It's sad, but again, it is what it is, unfortunately. So just, if you have seen The Last Duel, spread the word for people to see it. If you didn't like it, I'm very curious to hear your thoughts as to why you didn't. But either way, guys, a movie like The Last Duel doesn't come out too often, and hopefully we get more movies like it, but unfortunately we probably won't. But guys, The Last Duel, what did you think about it? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. And as always, don't forget subscription, notification bell, and I'll catch you guys later.